It is buy, sell, hold, avoid wide receiver edition. Nate, wide receiver, to me, one of the most important positions in fantasy football. Some might say the most important. It's what you and I love to build our teams around.
We've definitely moved to the strategy of building our teams around wide receivers. I feel like it has been a good move, and especially with what the running backs look like right now, it was good to get ahead of it.
We did something a little different though this week. I came up with ones for Nate, and Nate came up with ones for me.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
It was. I kind of liked it though. Some little bit of critical thinking going on there, which isn't my specialty. But that being said, let's get right into it. Our first buy, sell, hold, avoid candidate, Nate, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown. Everyone every year seems like, oh, sell A.J. Brown. Why? He's really productive.
It's true.
But tell me what you're doing.
I will tell you, I'm holding A.J. Brown / maybe selling A.J. Brown. Sometimes I like to pick two of these just because it can be situational. Let's look at A.J. Brown. Weeks 3 to 8, 6 weeks in a row, Mike, of 100+ yards and 6+ receptions. This is after his little sideline rant that he had week 2 when he got a little upset. And then for 6 straight weeks, they fed A.J. Brown, and he was the centerpiece of that offense. Like I said, 100+ yards and at least 6 receptions every single one of those games in a row. But what happened after week 8? He only had one game with 100 yards and 6+ receptions, and that was against the 49ers in week 13. I know the Eagles offense kind of fell apart at the end of the season. Mike, you got to witness it. You can tell us about that. But, A.J. Brown certainly was a part of that, and he fell off as well. He ended up finishing as a wide receiver 5. He still had a good season. He still was productive for fantasy football. But that early season dominance that we saw from him, we did not see again later in that season. It didn't pop back up. Ended up averaging 17 points per game, wide receiver 8 in that round. Currently going at the wide receiver 8 on keep, trade, cut, actually. Smith is there, plus a healthy Goddard. I think we've seen his ceiling on this team. What we saw in 2022, obviously a really, really good ceiling. You love to have that ceiling on your team. I'm talking down maybe a little on A.J. Brown right now, but I want to make it very clear. He's still a top 7-8 wide receiver for me in Dynasty as well. So that's why I'm holding him. He's valued at wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8. I have him there about myself. So I'm holding him, but he is turning 27 next season. So I'm not worried about age just yet. If I get the opportunity to get younger or maybe even upgrade Mike, I would be willing to move off of A.J. Brown. And in that example of upgrading from A.J. Brown, could I add a late first to A.J. Brown and go after one of the top 4 receivers? Maybe it's even a mid first. But when I say top 4 wide receivers, I'm talking about Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have him up there as well. Can I move from A.J. Brown to one of those guys? All 4 of those are a little bit younger than A.J. Brown, and I think a little bit more consistent moving forward. Also, could I add a second to A.J. Brown? Maybe go after a Garrett Wilson or Puka Nacua. You might even be able to do this deal straight up. Maybe for some people, I'd like to get a little bit younger. I have those guys in the same tier, so if I can get something on top of it, if I can get one of those guys, I'll do that. If I'm tearing down from A.J. Brown, looking for Nico Collins in a first-round pick, maybe the 107, 108 is what I'd be looking for. That would be one of my favorite deals of this offseason, Mike, to be honest. Nico Collins and the 107, 108 for A.J. Brown. I think production-wise from the wide receiver position, yes, I'm getting a slight downgrade, but moving forward, am I really? Who would I rather have as the quarterback for my fantasy wide receiver, C.J. Stroud or Jalen Hurts? Would I rather have the Eagles offense or the Texans offense? I know it's only been 1 year, but that Texans offense was incredible this year. And Nico Collins was incredible this year and almost had the similar production to A.J. Brown. And I expect Nico Collins to continue to improve and reach some pretty big heights. So if I was able to get a first-round pick, especially one at the 107, 108, where I can pick up a Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, maybe a quarterback 4 at that point, I think that would be one of my favorite deals of the offseason. If someone's looking to move off A.J. Brown, pick up another productive wide receiver, add an asset on top. I love something like that. In the same realm, A.J. Brown for maybe a guy like Devonta Smith or Jordan Addison. And can you get another wide receiver on it? I like a guy like Rashee Rice. But is there another kind of like that mid-value, a little bit higher, 20-ish wide receiver that you can add on, get 2 of those guys for A.J. Brown? I like something like that. I think there's opportunity there. In one quarterback, Mike, if we're looking at that over there, and this also applies to Superflex, I think A.J. Brown for Harrison Jr. I would kind of do that straight up, to be honest. If I am a rebuilding team, I think might be able to get something. Either way, I don't know. It depends. There's a lot of hype from Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. But if you're a contending team, I'm going to keep A.J. Brown in that situation. But if you're rebuilding, I would explore that option.
This one's tough for me, obviously being an Eagles fan, but trying to put my fandom aside. Their offense did not look great last year, which is why Kellen Moore is here now. So I'm actually thinking that the offense is going to be better. It's not going to look like a high school offense. It was, for the record, part of the reason that there was a problem is Jalen Hurts was audibling at a historic rate last year. Just some of the play calls that Brian Johnson was sending in were so bad. But still, I think I'm going to hold right now. Some of these deals I like better than others. I like it. Look, honestly, though, I would sell if I could get Nico Collins and a first. You know, if we're saying that the 107, 108, if I could turn A.J. Brown into Nico Collins and Troy Franklin or Brian Thomas Jr., now we're talking. And the reason why is if you have A.J. Brown and nothing else behind him, and now all of a sudden you could take one player and turn him into two starters, that's how you make your team better. Sometimes to get better, you have to, on paper, make your team a little bit worse by getting rid of your best player. That's just how it works. 2-for-1 deals I'm okay with. Otherwise, I'm probably going to hold. If I think I'm contending, he's definitely not coming out of my starting lineup.
Definitely
he's
hold.
going to chill in there.
I got to pick a player. So we did this, we were picking plays for each other. So you picked A.J. Brown for me. This
was a tough one.
Mike, I'm thinking here, we got a lot of young wide receivers in the NFL, and a lot of them are exciting. There's one guy who there's a lot of excitement about, but at the same time, we're maybe not putting him in that top tier of exciting young wide receiver. He's somewhere in between, maybe stuck in purgatory down there in the South. So I wanted to know, what are you doing with Chris Olave, Saints wide receiver?
So I must have changed my answer on this about 3 times because I can see it from a multitude of different ways, but I'm going to buy. He's underachieved, I think, as far as what we've expected him to do. And I think you could compare him to Garrett Wilson in that regard. He's also had a little bit of shaky quarterback play. Derek Carr. And look, Derek Carr looked decent. It was first year in the system. But look, Derek Carr has had a history of making wide receivers fantasy relevant. Okay, that's just a fact. First year in New Orleans, I think next year is going to be better. I have 0 shares of Chris Olave. It's time for that to change, Nate, not just to have. I don't want him just to have him, but he did take a leap from year 1 to year 2, and I think he has a bright future. 3rd-year breakout, the breakout that we want could be coming. In 2022, 72 catches, 1,042 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Last year, 87 for 1,123 and 5. So look, we're going up. 15 more catches, almost 100 more yards, and an extra touchdowns. Touchdowns are spotty. We know that. In the last pod, I talked about Mike Evans. Look at his touchdowns. They're all over the place. Mike Evans has also played with a lot of bad quarterbacks. A lot. And, Derek Carr, look, love him, hate him, whatever you want to think. People I saw on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, saying, he's going to get replaced. That's bad news for everybody. He's under contract until 2026, and it is not a cheap contract to get out from. Chris Olave is the best wide receiver on that roster, hands down. There is no arguing that. Michael Thomas in his prime would like to have a word, but that prime is gone. They have a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. I'm excited about Clint Kubiak coming in there, seeing what he can do with that offense, because there's some really talented players there. They do need to add to the wide receiver room, though.
They do.
I will say that after Chris Olave, there's a lot of question marks. I would like to see them add. The running back room has some question marks too, with Kamara, Jamal Williams getting older. Can Kendre Miller stay healthy? Can he be the guy that we think he can be? There's a lot of question marks everywhere else except for Chris Olave. And if I'm a super flex league, I could get him, I think, right now for a mid-first. Might have to add like a little third on top of there too, because people are high on Chris Olave. Drake London, his value is really close. Sorry, don't hurt me. And I did see a trade. I want your thoughts on this. I saw Bijan Robinson for Chris Olave and a 25 first. I did see that in the trade calculator. If I'm making that deal, I want a 24 first. I don't want to wait.
Bijan.
Yeah. I mean, if I was making that deal, if I felt the need to, I'd need it to be a 24 first, though, not a 25 first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need that. Or
pick. Else I have Jahmyr Gibbs and Devontae Chan and Jonathan Taylor on my team, and I'm just looking to diversify.
Yeah, exactly. And in a 1 quarterback league, going to definitely need that mid-first again. Sprinkle a third on top of there.
I like Chris Olave. I came around to him a little later than some people like Bob. He was pretty high on Chris Olave coming into the draft. I don't have a lot of Olave myself. Actually, I don't think I have a single share, to be honest. I think this is fair price for him. I'm not willing to probably pay, especially that Bijan deal. I think the Drake London one, I can go either way. I think Drake London has, moving forward, just as much potential as Chris Olave, honestly, but Chris Olave has done it already, production-wise. So that's the difference. And I think if in a vacuum between the two, I would pick Chris Olave, certainly, because we have that history and because I know what that offense is. For a mid-first straight up, if I'm looking at Rome Odunze or Chris Olave, I'm going to lean Chris Olave in a vacuum. But also I could see the argument for re-rolling with Rome Odunze, who I think has a similar ceiling. But it comes back to the question of, hey, do you want Chris Olave or Rome Odunze, who maybe is Chris Olave in fantasy points? Who knows?
But I think the main question I want to ask now is, Nate, buy, sell, hold the void. Houston Texans wide receiver Tank Dell.
Yes, thank you for this one. Coming off the injury, it's an interesting dilemma here. What do we do with Tank Dell, who's currently the wide receiver 22 on Keep Trade Cut? This is about where I have him in my own rankings, Mike, about wide receiver 22 myself. So once again, that makes him a buy/hold for me. AJ Brown being at the top, I don't like to usually buy the top players. They're expensive, so hold/sell. But for a guy like Tank Dell, who I think has a chance to rise up in value, I'm going to hold on to him at this value, but also be interested in buying if I get him for about this value, a little bit cheaper maybe. Coming off the injury, I'm not too worried about. It is the leg injury. Doesn't usually affect wide receivers too bad. If it was a foot injury, I'd be more concerned, honestly. That's what's plagued Michael Thomas and some players like him who've struggled to come back from those foot injuries. Rashad Bateman, another one who's struggled to come off his foot injury. But leg injuries, broken legs, we can deal with those. They come back stronger, right? Maybe some size concerns, but those are only really with health, not really with production. I don't really take his size into a production concern. He's obviously shown he's good enough at the NFL level. Same age as Nico Collins, though. I don't think a lot of people realize this. Both of these players are 24 years old.
Interesting.
I know that Tank Dell is the rookie and Nico Collins was the third-year player, but both of these players are 24 years old. Nico Collins came into the league very young. Tank Dell came in a little bit older. While it's still impressive what Tank did his rookie year, because it took Nico about 3 years to do that, well, he needed a good quarterback too. That certainly helped, and to stay healthy. Let's remember, these guys are the same age, so when we're looking at the two of those, we can't maybe give quite a same advantage to some other rookies that we give to Tank Dell in their comparisons to their veterans, because these guys are the same age. So moving forward, I'm looking at this as a 1A, 1B situation, and I'm giving the slight lean to Nico Collins, which is why, I'm not out there buying Tank Dell everywhere I can. He's more of a hold for me than a buy because I don't think he's necessarily the wide receiver one over Nico Collins. I definitely think he has plenty of ability to kind of share that workload with Nico Collins. He looked very good when they were both in the field together. Look, CJ Stroud can support top 24 wide receivers, so you're good either way, really. If I can move Stefon Diggs for Tank Dell, that's something I would be looking to do right now. I think you might be able to get that conversation just from a straight swap. You might also have to add a little bit to Stefon Diggs, but a team that's contending and maybe a little bit worried about Tank Dell coming off the injury, I think you can get that conversation definitely started. If I'm upgrading from Tank Dell, because I like to throw this one in there too, because I think there's always an opportunity to use a player to upgrade to another player. And if I could put on the 106 to Tank Dell for CeeDee Lamb, I would do that, Mike. You're probably putting together like two pretty good wide receivers, but you're getting CeeDee Lamb out of it. So if you're looking to consolidate, I think that's a move you can make. And if you're looking to sell Tank Dell, because I think there is a world that you could sell Tank Dell because he's decent value right now. You're not really selling low on Tank Dell, maybe a little bit, but we can work with that. Could I go after Devonta Smith or DJ Moore? I think both those guys are ranked higher than Tank Dell, but Tank Dell being a rookie and what he did his rookie year, there might be people that are looking to get younger, and maybe they want to move off of Devonta Smith or DJ Moore. You might not have to add that much to Tank Dell. And remember, Tank Dell's 24 years old. He's really not that much younger than Devonta Smith, DJ Moore. Maybe use that to your advantage, because it's fun now to see Tank Dell and be like, oh, look at this rookie killing it. I remember Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin was a very old rookie wide receiver. I believe he was 24 his rookie year as well. He's now 28. And he's like he just came out of a rookie contract. But we're all looking at Terry McLaurin. We're like, oh, look at that old guy. We don't really want him too much more in a couple of years. He's going to be old. He'll be 30. So the excitement is here. But just because of how we all play Dynasty, Tank Dell is going to hit that old mark a lot quicker than the other players. 2 years from now, Tank Dell is going to be finishing up his third season to be 26 years old.
I would definitely buy, hold. And I like you make the point where, hey, if I wanted to sell, what your upgrades could be. I agree with all this. And by the way, the upgrade, the 106 plus Tank Dell for CD Lamb, if I could do that, yeah, I'm definitely doing that all day.
I think that's just another really good move where you're obviously giving up two good pieces, but that's what you got to do to get a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and that can be the finishing touch on your championship team. This is a player I don't know what to do with, and this is a player that you've talked a lot about over the years that we've done this podcast together. So I figured if I need to go to somebody to ask about Denver Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton, it's going to be Mike Bauer. So, Mike,
Thanks.
What are you doing with Courtland Sutton?
You got to hold right now. And, sometimes the best answer is to do nothing. And I know that sounds stupid because we're supposed to have a course of action for everything, right? Right. Sometimes you don't know. There's a lot of questions surrounding the Denver Broncos right now. Who is the quarterback going to be next year? That's a big one. I don't think I can get what I want to get, what I feel like his value is if I try to sell him, what I value him as. And I don't think that I could also buy him as cheaply as I want to. That's the problem. So there's a wide range of outcomes for Courtland Sutton. Both of those things can be true. What did he do last year, though, Nate? He averaged 11.9 fantasy points per game. So he's a really solid flex starter for you at almost 12 points a game. There are going to be times where you could throw him in your wide receiver 2 spot and feel pretty comfortable about it, regardless of who the quarterback is. And you know what? If you are interested in selling, don't do it right now. There's a guy that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. He's an aging prospect, but unlike this other guy, he's been far less consistent yardage-wise, and he's also sustained more injuries than that other player. You have to wait. It's called the teaser. He had an ACL and MCL tear, concussion, hamstring strain. These are all injuries that he's missed time with. And again, the big question, what are the Broncos doing at quarterback? We don't know. We know Sean Payton's going to be there. I would be happy if they drafted J.J. McCarthy.
McCarthy would be fine. I think Bo Nix would have some potential within a Sean Payton offense. Do you think there's a sell window when they get a quarterback, or would you hold at that point still?
You know what? I do think there will be a sell window if they draft a quarterback because you know how the hype trains go. It's just like every time a player gets drafted to the Chiefs, the Bills, depending on the player, the Eagles, it's just there's always that hype. And you'll know. And here's why. You don't advertise the player. If you think there's a sell window, do not put the player on the trade block. Let people come to you. When you feel like there's a sell window on a player and you put that player on the trade block, all you're saying is he's available. I might take less. Let people come to you. See what you can get from people. Let them do the legwork for you. It shouldn't always have to be you making the effort. If people want them, just don't use the trade block sometimes. Just have conversations. Sometimes, sometimes if I want a player, like if I want Courtland Sutton from Nate, I'll ask about Tank Dell. Hey, what do you want to do with Tank Dell? And then all of a sudden I'm trading for Courtland Sutton.
I'm going to have to be careful next time you trade him, Mike. I'm going to be like, who are you looking for? Who are you actually looking for?
I am a wild card. You don't want to know what goes on up here. What are you doing with Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs? I think I beat you to it. I think I filled out this part of the show sheet before you did.
I think you did. A value buy for contending teams. Otherwise, a hold.
I like that.
I've been on the more optimistic side of Stefon Diggs over the past couple months. For better or worse, we'll see. Look, right now, he's outside the top 30 wide receivers on Keep Trade Cut. Pretty low fall for Stefon Diggs, who still had a really good season. He was still a wide receiver 1 for us this season. 107 receptions, 1,100 yards, almost 1,200, 8 touchdowns on 159 targets.
Beautiful.
What can you ask more for? I know it was a tough end to the year. This is still great production, 1.99 yards per route run. Like to see that. Actually, really similar stats in his 2021 season, Mike. But 2022 was just so impressive that this seems like a huge decline for him. And like I said, I also understand the end of the season, there was a visible decline or just something wasn't working with Stefon Diggs. I don't know if there was an injury, if it was off the field stuff. I don't know, but it definitely looked off. We can all make that statement and know that. But I still believe he has 2 to 3 years of top 24 seasonal upside. He has had 6 seasons in a row with 1,000 yards. Looking at his career averages, honestly, and all of his efficiency stats, like I said, 2023 really wasn't that bad of a year. I know it really felt like the tale of two halves, and there is something to say for an older player declining over the second half of a season. He's with the Bills for a long time. He's there for like another 2 years, I think, before they can even really try to get out of his contract. So he's going to have Josh Allen throwing to him. Gabe Davis is leaving in free agency. I'm sure they will replace him, but whether that's a rookie or a free agent, Stefon Diggs is the wide receiver 1 there moving forward. And I still think there's a lot of value to have there. I know it's really easy to say, oh, this guy's washed up. Stefon Diggs isn't even 30 yet. I still believe in the talent. He still put up good seasons. It's not like he put together like a wide receiver 22 season, and this is him on his decline. He might be going down a little bit, but I still, like I said, I think you're getting 2 to 3 years of a top 24 upside. If I'm a rebuilding team, probably not looking to buy him unless I think I can flip him, which I think you probably could do later in when the season starts, when people are having to start lineups again and get fantasy points. I think he's a value right now, honestly. If you're a contending team, you could get him for like an early second. That's how low we're on Stefon Diggs. Deontay Johnson and a running back, maybe like Devin Singletary, that might get the job done. We're just the community is just so low on Stefon Diggs, who is still a top wide receiver. It makes me a little sad because I really like Stefon, coming out of UMD back in the day, Mike. But I'm also willing to trade him if I can. Stefon Diggs, you add like the 110 on top. I can go after a guy like Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle maybe, and that's something I'd be looking to do as well. If I can add a late first on top of Stefon Diggs to move up into one of those stud young wide receivers, I would make a move like that as well. So, a couple of different options with Stefon Diggs, but I still believe that he has some production ahead of him.
I understand the frustration about Stefon Diggs too. In the first 6 weeks of the season, 5 of those weeks had 100-yard receiving games.
Yeah.
He did not break 100 yards the rest of the year. The closest he got, he had an 86-yard week, 6 for 86 and 1 in week 9, and then 7 for 87, no touchdowns in week 17. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was bad, Mike. I actually have a note on here. I didn't get to it, but the last 8 games of the season, he only went over 50 yards receiving twice. Yeah. It was bad. It was definitely bad. But his PFF grade didn't decline over that time. And I know there's a lot of conversations about who likes PFF and who doesn't. I don't think that they are a godsend, but I respect the work that they do. They have a lot of advanced stats. Their grades maybe aren't as 100% as their advanced analytics, but I still respect their grades. And to see them say that, hey, he still looked good on a lot of the routes he ran and things like that. Maybe it was more of a issue with him and Josh Allen or how that offense was being run with Joe Brady. You remember Joe Brady in his last couple stops in the NFL did not really, with the Panthers, DJ Moore did not have a great season with Joe Brady, actually. That was the year that the ball got spread around a lot. So, that's something to keep into account.
I like where your head's at here. I think I'm going to go try to buy some Stefon Diggs.
I think there's value there. Like I said, outside the top 30, I personally have him probably like wide receiver 26 or 27. So I'm not like too much higher on him. That's just, especially off-season value. That's where I have him right now. That value can go up as we get closer to setting lineups. If some of these young guys, maybe their situations change. And if you can get them for outside the top 30, I think there's just value there for a contending team. One more for you, Mike, and this is where I do want to know what's going on in your head. And you gave me Stefon Diggs, so I had to at least give you a little bit of an older veteran as well. Just talking about this guy actually a little bit earlier, getting to veteran status, maybe a little bit quicker than some of the other guys. What are you doing with Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin?
I'm buying.
All right.
4 seasons over 1,000 yards. And in his rookie year, he was close. He had 919. Quarterback play, Sam Howell was up and down. Okay, we know that. But he did average 12 fantasy points per game. He's only 28. Why are we going to panic sell this guy? If you're buying Stefon Diggs, you might as well buy a cheaper version with Terry McLaurin. Some people would consider this to be prime age for a wide receiver. Sure, He's dependable, Nate. He hasn't missed a game since 2020. It's pretty dang good. He could be a reliable wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, a really good flex option. And you know what? Those positions are important. You can't fill your roster with wide receiver 1s. Good luck trying to do that. Moves like this, while not heralded very much, they could pay dividends to helping you push your team over the top because depth is so important. And look, even if the worst case scenario is that Sam Howell's the quarterback next year, we're okay with that, Nate. You know why? He still went over 1,000 yards last year, 79 receptions, 1,002 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did have a career low in yards per reception in 12.7. That was second to his previous career low in 2020, which is 12.9. I think all around the Cliff Kingsbury offense coming in there, I think it's going to be better. I'm looking forward to that. And if I'm buying them, in a Superflex league, you're going to need multiple seconds. You can move Ramondre Stevenson for him right now to get him. I do think in a 1 quarterback league, it's going to have to be like a late first Probably. Maybe like the
Yeah.
201, 202 might get it done. Or you could try for like a 24 second and a 25 third. If you're okay with multiple picks, try not to move a first round pick. But I like McLaurin. I like dependability. Guys that you could just throw in there. Hey, you're not going to get injured very often. Do some work for me.
Yeah, I like McLaurin as well. I know I was kind of banging on him about being old so quickly in the league, but there's also something to be said that for career production, it's more about the years in the league than it is the actual age. There's been some data that's shown that. So, I think McLaurin still has, 3, 4, 5 more years of production. I think he'll be productive well into his early 30s. With a quarterback upgrade, like I expect him to get Drake May, I'm a huge Jahan Dotson fan, Mike, but he did not have a great season last year. So if the prophecy is not true and Jahan Dotson does not become the wide receiver 1 for the Commanders this year, and it's Terry McLaurin. And if Terry McLaurin is the wide receiver 1 for Drake May, I think you're going to have a really good season for the value that he currently goes at. So I'm here with you as a buy on Terry McLaurin.